The Long Walk, a Nelson Mandela. Chapter 1. The Troublemaker of Kunu. In 1918, in the tiny village of Mvezo, a boy was born and named Rolihlahla. In the Xhosa language, the name literally means pulling the branch of a tree, but its idiomatic meaning is troublemaker. He was the son of a high-ranking counselor to the royal house of the Vembu people. After his father died, the 9-year-old was adopted by the acting regent of the Vembu, which set him on a path toward African royalty. However, Rolihlahla's life was defined by defying expectations. On his first day of school, his teacher gave him the name Nelson because it was the custom to give African children Christian names that British colonials could easily pronounce. As he grew, he was groomed for a career as a tribal counselor. But when the regent tried to arrange a marriage for him in 1941, Nelson chose a different path. He stole 2 of the king's prized cattle, sold them to a local trader, and used the money to flee to the bustling city of Johannesburg. In the city, he worked as a night watchman, and then as a law clerk, while living in the impoverished township of Alexandra. He studied by candlelight, eventually becoming one of the few black lawyers in the country. Along with his friend Oliver Tambo, he opened the first black-run law firm in South Africa. They didn't just practice law, they used it as a tool to fight the early seeds of apartheid, a brutal system designed to keep people of different races strictly separated. Chapter 2. The Black Pimpernel and Cell 46664. By the 1950s, Mandela had become a key figure in the African National Congress (ANC). As the government's crackdown on black activists intensified, Mandela went underground. He was so skilled at evading capture that the press dubbed him the Black Pimpernel. He traveled the country in various disguises, sometimes as a chauffeur, other times as a gardener or a chef, organizing strikes and protests right under the noses of the police. When the government responded with violence, Mandela's stance shifted. He realized that nonviolence alone might not break the regime. He co-founded Umkhonto we-Sizwe, Spear of the Nation, the militant wing of the ANC. This eventually led to his arrest in 1962. During the famous Rivonia trial, facing the possibility of a death sentence, he delivered a speech from the dock that would echo around the world. "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." He was sentenced to life in prison. He spent 18 of his 27 years on Robben Island, a desolate outcrop in the Atlantic Ocean. He was assigned the prisoner number 46664. His days were spent in a 7-by-7-foot cell, and his afternoons were spent breaking rocks in a lime quarry. The glare of the white lime was so intense it permanently damaged his tear ducts, making it impossible for him to cry. Yet he stayed resilient. He was an avid amateur boxer, and he spent his mornings shadowboxing and doing fingertip push-ups in his cell to keep his body a temple of discipline. Chapter 3. The Language of the Enemy. Mandela's most strategic move in prison wasn't a physical one. It was intellectual. He began studying Afrikaans, the language of the white minority government that oppressed him. His fellow prisoners were confused, even angry, but Mandela explained, "If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart." He wanted to understand the fears and the history of his jailers so he could one day negotiate with them. In 1990, the world watched as a 71-year-old Mandela walked out of Victor Verster prison, hand in hand with his wife Winnie. He had not been seen in public for nearly 3 decades. Most expected he would call for a revolution to settle old scores. Instead, he called for reconciliation. In 1994, at the age of 76, he cast his vote for the very first time in his life, and won the presidency in South Africa's first multiracial election. Even as president, he remained a man of surprises. In 1995, he walked onto the field of the Rugby World Cup final wearing a Springbok jersey, a symbol that many black South Africans had hated for decades. By wearing it, he signaled to the white population that they too belonged in the new South Africa. His fame was so great that he even landed a cameo in the 1992 film Malcolm X. He played a teacher in a Soweto classroom, but he famously refused to say the final line of the speech, by any means necessary. He felt that as a man dedicated to peace, he couldn't endorse violence, even on screen. From a runaway royal to a prisoner to a global symbol of forgiveness, Mandela proved that troublemaking in the name of justice could change the world. Now the podcast will continue with 8 interesting facts about Nelson Mandela. 1. The terrorist who won a Nobel Peace Prize, believe it or not. Nelson Mandela remained on the U.S. terrorist watch list until 2008. He was 89 years old and had been out of the presidency for nearly a decade before the U.S. officially removed his name. 2. A secret master of disguise before his arrest. Mandela was so good at hiding that he was known as the Black Pimpernel. He once evaded a police blockade by dressing as a chauffeur and driving a car with his white employer, a fellow activist, in the back seat. 3. The man who married a two-nation First Lady, Mandela's third wife, Graca Machel, holds a record that may never be broken. She is the only woman in history to have been the First Lady of 2 different countries, Mozambique and South Africa. 4. He had a band Spice in his music. In 1985, Stevie Wonder dedicated his Oscar to Mandela. In response, the South African government immediately banned Stevie Wonder's music from all national radio stations. 5. The Mandela particle and the woodpecker. Mandela's name is literally in the stars and the trees. Scientists have named a prehistoric woodpecker Australopithecus nelsonmandelae and a nuclear particle, the Mandela particle, in his honor. 6. A boxing strategy for peace. Mandela didn't box because he liked violence. He boxed because he loved the science of defense. He used the discipline of the ring to survive the psychological warfare of prison life. 7. The prisoner who secretly published a book, his famous autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, was written in secret while he was still in prison. The manuscript was buried in the prison garden to hide it from the guards. 8. The global birthday party. Mandela is one of the only people in history to have his birthday, July 18th, declared an official international day by the United Nations. People around the world celebrate by giving 67 minutes of their time to public service. Nelson Mandela once said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." From a runaway royal escaping an arranged marriage to a prisoner digging a secret garden, and finally to a president wearing the jersey of his former oppressors, Mandela's life wasn't just a long walk to freedom. It was a masterclass in the power of the human spirit. He proved that the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world isn't a fist or a firearm. It's the choice to forgive. He left us with a challenge that still rings true today. What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others. How will you use your 67 minutes today? Thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to subscribe and share this episode with someone who needs a reminder that even the darkest cells can't dim a bright heart. I'm your host, and you've been listening to History of Leaders 365. Every leader has a story, and we're here to tell them all 365 days a year. Until next time, keep your head toward the sun and your feet moving forward.